on the continent to help us get there, to help on forward. I've talked about we need more builders. We need a Bitcoin Institute in Africa that is supporting researchers, that's investing in researchers, and that is defining and helping us craft of using this technology in our continent, and how do we actually practically grow the Bitcoin on the continent. An institute that's engaging with policymakers, that's speaking to them in their language, that's engaging with business communities, speaking to them in their language, and giving them facts on why this technology is critical for us. We need a storytellers fund. Most stories about Bitcoin in Africa, unfortunately at the moment, are being told by people who are not African. We need to tell our own story. It requires resources. We need to put resources behind people who can tell the story of Bitcoin from the African lens. But we also need an agency, a fund, someone that is engaging with the mainstream applications, the mainstream software applications that's powering and improving quality of life of Africans, and that's engaging with the leaders of those organizations and working with them to integrate Bitcoin into the experience. The average African needs an infinite number of ways to earn and spend Bitcoin. And that will happen on those applications where they currently earn and spend their fiat. And so we need to have a very intentional approach to getting those platforms to onboard Bitcoin in the experience. The work I do at the Human Rights Foundation is focused on supporting builders who help us get Bitcoin, who help us strengthen Bitcoin, but also get Bitcoin into the hands of people, particularly in repressed and authoritarian environments. And we do that through the Bitcoin Development Fund. Every quarter, we give about 10 Bitcoin, or about $1 million, to projects across the Bitcoin world. We want to give more support to builders from the global majority countries. Countries that need peer-to-peer electronic cash. We need those builders to be coming forward. Come forward with projects that are well thought through, that dial into what we need on the continent, and that help show the society and the environment what Bitcoin can do to improve quality of life. Bitcoin is a tool that we can use to restore Africa's dignity. It's a tool we can use to restore Africa's dignity. But we need to wield that tool with agency. That's the privilege we have of being in this room. Thank you very much.
Wow. Please, another round of applause. Perfect music as well. I'm trying not to cry, right? So, oh, my brother, my brother. Thank you so much. What a way to start the day. Anybody else feel challenged? Don't leave me hanging. Do you feel challenged by what he talked about? One person. Thank you. Just one person. No, honestly, that was powerful. That was needed. And we can all play a part. We can all play a role. Just doing exactly what he talked about. If you actually enjoyed that session, take out your phone and raise it up. You enjoyed it. Take out your phone, raise it up, and wave it. Wave it at me. Some of you are here to take out your phones. Wave it, wave it. Thank you very much. Now, before you put it down, go on Twitter. Open Twitter. Find Africa Bitcoin Conference. The username is AfroBitcoin.org, and follow. Because some of you are here to follow. What do you mean, You are at a conference, you did not even follow the conference. Thank you, Jare, my brother. Make sure that you follow Africa Bitcoin Conference on Twitter. Have you clicked follow? Retweet the last thing that they tweeted, which is you can now stream hashtag ABC24 day 2. Make sure have you retweeted? Some of you are looking at me. Thank you so much. And make sure that you are tweeting about what is happening here. And make sure that you use the hashtag ABC24. And while you have your phone, open Instagram. I know some of you don't have Instagram accounts. Can you imagine? Open Instagram and make sure that you find Africa.Bitcoin conference. And please follow them on Instagram. I am personally upset that they are not at 1,000 followers yet. Can you imagine? And look at all the lives that they are touching, all the lives that they are changing with this conference. Go on Instagram. This doesn't take you 10 seconds. And find Africa.Bitcoin conference and follow. Right now we are at 842 followers. I will know whether or not you guys follow or you did not follow. Because if the number doesn't change, it means you did not press follow. How many of you don't have Instagram accounts? Wow. Okay. Open one just so you can follow. It doesn't take 1 minute. Open Instagram account just so you can follow the Africa Bitcoin conference. I mean, don't you ever feel like coming back and watching some of the keynote addresses that you have listened to? Because, you know, a lot is happening within 3 days. Later, you may want to revisit Femi's speech and feel challenged again. All these things are being uploaded on their Instagram and their Twitter pages. So thank you so much, guys, for being patient. Thank you for keeping to time, by the way. That was wonderful. Give him another round of applause. All right, so one of the things that makes me so happy and so excited, and it keeps me inspired as a woman, is the fact that we were all convened here by an African woman. Amen, somebody. That deserves a round of applause. No offense, guys. It took an African woman to say, why are we not doing this, you know? So, Madam Farida, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Farida. Okay. So the next keynote speaker is going to talk about how Bitcoin is redefining financial freedom for women in Africa. Yes! Yes, I am so excited as well. And so I'd like to invite to the podium Marcel Lorraine. This woman came a long way, all the way from Kenya, guys. All the way from Kenya. All the way, give her a round of applause. All the way from Kenya. That's a long way. And she is the founder of Bitcoin Dada. Another round of applause.
I'm going to take a few seconds to try and see if I can operate this before I embarrass myself. Okay, see? I knew it. It's still not working. Oh, now I get it. Okay. So yeah, as you've heard, I am Marcel Lorraine. I'm the founder of Bitcoin Dada. And essentially what Bitcoin Dada is, it's a non-profit organization that helps to empower the African female through financial education, and we leverage on Bitcoin to do that. So I'm going to go into that a bit later, but let's start. So I'm going to start by acknowledging that the majority of us in this room are Africans, and you'd agree with me when I say being an African is hard, right? Is it? But then I'm going to continue and say being an African female is even harder. Now, there are certain challenges that we face as African females, and I'm here to share with you these challenges, and have in mind that these challenges come actually in different forms, shapes, and levels. Now, this stems from social, economic hurdles, as well as gender-based discrimination. Now, the first thing that I want to talk to is, for example, in Kenya currently, we have seen the rise of femicide. It has been on the rise since 2017. Last year, we had about 152 killings. This year, for the last 3 months, a female has been killed every single day. So every day, we have news that this particular woman was killed at this particular point. And you know what's surprising about it? only 15% of these females die in the hands of the strangers, meaning 75% are killed by people they actually trust and loved. And this was a report made by one of the largest media platforms in Kenya, which is Nation Media. So like I said, I'm going to talk about the challenges and just help you understand what we go through as women. And I want you to imagine with me these certain scenarios. Imagine being in a position where you cannot afford sanitary towels, thereby forcing you as a female, as a young female, to actually engage yourself with older men, risking early pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, or infections. Imagine yourself being in a scenario where you're paid 77% less, or 45% if you're lucky and you're in the urban centers. Imagine a case where you're in the same economy, you have the same responsibilities, but you have lack of substantial collateral. Imagine yourself being or seeing your male siblings go off to get higher education while you get married off at an early age. Now, of course, for the ones who are in the urban areas, this might not be the narrative, and for the majority of you, you might not necessarily have had to experience this, but in one way or another, when you go outside the urban cities in Kenya or even in Africa, in other African countries, this is the case. So how does Bitcoin come in? So for me, before Bitcoin, there was not really like a chance for us females to get true financial freedom or independence or even a voice. So through Bitcoin Dada, we are trying to change that narrative and telling our communities, not just as the females, that there is a way that we as African females can also contribute by building Africa with this new technology. And how do we do this? So at Bitcoin Dada, we have trainings every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Bitcoin Dadas, we meet. So we meet every Tuesdays and Thursdays just to learn about financial education, which is the most important thing, because for you to understand Bitcoin, you need to understand the flaws of your current financial fiat system. So every Thursdays and Tuesdays, we accommodate mothers, wives, working professionals, businesses, just to help them understand where the world is going and what's wrong with the current leadership or the government or the control system that we are currently in. So we've been doing this since 2022. We've done 7 cohorts, and we came up with Dada Devs. Dada Devs is a new product. We just recently graduated our first set of developers. And like Femi said, and he keeps on stressing this, that we need to build solutions for Africans by Africans, right? The African population, this is something that I should have mentioned when I started this speech, but the African population is composed of half, if not more, of the African females. That means we make most of the transactions. We're paying the bills, we're taking care of the children, we're doing most of the transactions that are happening at home. It's us, the women, who are doing. And I believe you will agree with me when we say that the majority of our mothers, actually the pillars of our homes. True or true? True or true? So when we are building solutions, we want to have input that is coming from somebody who actually understands the challenges, right? So that is where Dada Devs comes in. So we've been building applications that actually cater to our needs as not just as women, but also as Africans. Last but not least is the mentorship program, which I feel there's a big gap when it comes to educators. We normally just teach people, Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin is the next thing. Hodl for the next 10 years. Don't sell your Bitcoin, right? But then what happens after they've learned this? So we introduced a mentorship program where we refine the skills that they already have. Remember, everybody that comes into this space has different skill sets. So for example, we have writers, we have developers, we have entrepreneurs, we have investors as well. So we get Bitcoiners, and we're very lucky to have support from Bitcoiners. We have Okin in the house. Okin, who's been in the space. Thank you so much for being one of our mentors. Of course, we have Femi Longe, who's also joined us several times. We have had Jeff Booth. We've had Jesse. We've had Vlad. I think I saw Vlad somewhere. And several others. We have had Renata from Fedi. We've had Renata as well, and so many others who've actually helped us fill in that gap. And by doing this, we've seen that there is a change. So the beauty about the mentorship program is that our ladies can go into the Bitcoin ecosystem, the tech space, or even the larger community and get employment. And that is it's very important. You just don't teach people what Bitcoin is. And at the end of the day, they go back, they're still poor, they're still struggling, and they're still dependent on their fiat. So I want to share a couple of stories that really stand out within our community, and these are not the only ones, but they are representative of what we have been able to do. So for us at Bitcoin Dada, it's not just about the African female, it's about making the community around us better. So we try to include everybody, and especially the underprivileged. We've been able to work with this school from Kibera slums. For those who don't know, Kibera is one of the largest slums in Africa. So where we actually donate basic hygienic products as well as educational materials. So every Bitcoin donation that we get during this fundraising period, it helps to keep these girls in school to avoid, them getting taken advantage of. And every time you donate to Bitcoin Dada, you're essentially helping the young ladies stay in school. I've seen her, she was really smiling at me. So, like I said, the mentorship program helped these ladies refine their skills and be able to actually get employment into this space. I'd like to highlight one of the brilliant minds that we've had in the Bitcoin Dada space. She's called Sharon. She's right there. She works for BTrust. I believe her bosses are here, Abu Bakr. She works for BTrust, and when she joined Bitcoin Dada, she really didn't know where to, put her skills into. So through the mentorship program, she got a job at BTrust where she gets paid in Bitcoin, and now she thrives and also tries to help other ladies along. So we've had a lot of females also getting employment in the tech space, which is a plus for us. I would like to highlight a new project. We have so many projects that are coming up with the Bitcoin Dada ladies. I would like to highlight Bit Biashara by Roslyn. So basically what Bit Biashara is, she onboards merchants. So if you're here, this is your first time in Kenya, or even if you're Kenyan, you're wondering, where can I go to spend this Bitcoin of mine? Or how do these people who actually accept Bitcoin find it? The best person to approach would be Roslyn from Bit Biashara. She's been doing an amazing job. They recently had their first merchant meeting, and you can follow them on Twitter as well. So we are basically creating Bitcoin circular economies. Last but not least is the African solutions that I've been talking about. We've come up with a few products that we are currently building, and I've highlighted Satsflow. Reason being is because we are launching it today, and we are launching it today. We have a workshop at 2 p.m. at the TBD. I would encourage you to come and see not just Satsflow, but other products that we've been working on. We have a very controversial t-shirt, and I would like one of the ladies to just really fast run here, because I want everybody to see this. 3, 2, 1, not fast enough, but yeah. So this is not our logo, but I felt like Marxists do anything for attention. And I was like, we are also women. We can do worse. And this is it. So if this does not make you get to our workshop, there's something wrong with you. So thank you, Edith. Edith is our community lead from Uganda. So on the Africa Solutions, we have had a couple of projects coming up. So we have the Satsflow, we've had Pay with Sats, we've had Edu Bitcoin, we have Tando, we have, what is it called? Impact Donate. So like I said, if you want to learn about more of these projects, please show up at our event later on at 2 p.m. So in the past 2 years since we started, we've had a huge impact. And the reason why we've been able to scale is because the challenges are so many. And for Bitcoin Dada, we do not victimize ourselves, right? We know the problem is there, but we try and come up with solutions that can actually help us instead of sticking to the victimization level. So we've expanded to 11 different countries, African countries. We've had job placements for the ladies. We've trained over 500 female and 200 youths. We have collaborated with universities to bring them financial education and just to introduce Bitcoin into the universities. Wealth accumulation, which is a very strong point, because if you're African, you know African females have no right to inherit property unless they really work their ass off and actually buy their property for themselves. So with Bitcoin, this is really important for us, because with Bitcoin, you can start accumulating your wealth with even just $1, right? We have had solutions built for Africans by Africans, which I just talked about. Creating Bitcoin circular economies, which is very important, that sitting, like Femi said, sitting on Twitter and just say hodl, hodl, hodl. I don't think we'll ever get to that hyper-Bitcoinization level by just doing that. We need to go out into the community and reach out to the people in a more relatable way. We've had mental health awareness, so we work with a professional. So it's not just about our financial well-being, but the overall well-being of these women. We have collaborated with universities, and I must add here that we have had support from products such as BitNob. I don't know if the BitNob guys are here. We've worked with them. Thank you so much. We've worked with BitNob to do activations in universities. We've also worked with Machankura as well. And then lastly, a community approach. And I just want to stress on this I want to stress and say, Bitcoin for us is not just a digital currency. It's a tool that will liberate us as Africans from the financial constraints or the financial chains that have been long imposed on us. So please, let's use Bitcoin as it suits us as Africans, and not just copy-pasting everything that we see from the West. And as I leave the stage, I want to leave with a quote that really resonates with me, and it says, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." The reason why I chose this quote is because a lot of people come to me and ask me, why do you do what you do? What do you gain from helping these women? I believe whether you're female, male, white, black, whatever, Muslim, Christian, if any of us at some level, we are caged, at some point that will also affect us. So it really doesn't matter, oh, I'm living a good life, these people are having problems. Those problems will definitely trickle to you at some point. So it's very important to understand that we need to do something as a community, as the Bitcoin community, at whatever level that you can. And as I leave, for my African sisters who are in this space, whether you're a dada or not, I would like to say that I might still be learning, but I'm definitely taking you along with me. Thank you.
Wow. Are you glad you are here this morning? I mean, it keeps getting better. Please give her another round of applause. This is wonderful. First of all, thanks to the 22 of you that just followed Africa Bitcoin on on Instagram. If you were not here at the time, we ask you to kindly follow Africa Bitcoin Conference on Twitter and on Instagram. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. I want to add one more thing. They have a YouTube channel. Please and please subscribe to their YouTube channel. Raise up your phone one more time. Click subscribe. Raise your phone. Thank you. Raise your phone. Please open YouTube and follow them on, subscribe to them on YouTube so that more people can see this event and watch it after. So I'm really inspired so far, and I want to beg all the other speakers, please and please keep to time. I've already promised everybody that we'll be out of here before 10. It's getting close to 10 a.m., and, don't worry. I will make sure that you are out of here before 10. Our next speaker is not a stranger. You guys have heard him speak yesterday. The interim CEO and board member of BTrust. He wears many hats, by the way. This man is so intelligent, so smart. Sometimes it is intimidating. I mean, you hear him speak, he speaks really fast as well. And we are still trying to dissect what he said here, but he's already there. And so I would like to beg my father this morning that, Uncle, please take it easy on us as you are talking. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us, to give us the keynote speech on BTrust, please help me welcome to the stage Abubakar Nur Khalil. A bigger round of applause, please.
Just want to make sure that it works as well. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for making the third edition of ABC. Before I get started on my talk, I really want to take the time to appreciate Farida and the team and everyone who has been part of this historic journey. What started out as really a general mission that we had to explain to the rest of the world that Africa is not going to be a bystander in this movement, but Africa is essentially going to be a leader. And a handful of us, and honestly, a growing handful of us, I should say, have taken the time, the resources, the sacrifices over the last couple of years to not only make that a reality, but make that an inspiring story for the rest of the world to follow along. So what I want to do today and this morning is to kind of give you guys exactly what BTrust has been doing in terms of helping to catalyze this type of reality, as well as the future. To begin with, I'd obviously like to introduce myself. My name is Abubakar Nur Khalil, as she mentioned. I'm the CEO of Recursive Capital, which is a Bitcoin VC that essentially invests in early stage companies with a specific focus in Africa. I'm also the interim CEO as well as board member of BTrust, where our mission is essentially to decentralize Bitcoin development in what used to be called the Global South, but the global majority is a picking up term, which I think honestly should be the standard. I also write for Forbes, catalyzing the evolution of Bitcoin. Thank you. Thank you. I also write for Forbes, catalyzing the evolution of the Bitcoin industry, specifically in Africa, trying to make sure that we have key metrics when it comes to data, empirical analysis on exactly what's going on for everyone around the world to understand and kind of use this African experience as the template. I also work on Bitcoin Core, mostly PR reviews. So I think it's very important for us to take a step back and give you guys exactly what BTrust's vision is more broadly. First, I'd like to clarify that BTrust is not set up to dictate to Africa exactly what needs to be done to be built. For that to happen, what we need is Africans to stand up and to also do exactly what's necessary for the African continent. That is why our mission is not to dictate, but to enable and support. And what we understood over time is that the primary way in which we can do that is to make sure that we give the right tools, services, support for everyone on the continent to be able to meaningfully contribute to this mission. And in terms of our approach, we kind of took a step back again, honestly, to take a look at exactly what are the pain points on the continent, what are some of the issues that are being faced, how can we position BTrust as well as the activities that we have in a strategic way that would help enable and not impede, that would help catalyze and not diminish, that would help empower and not confuse. So the method in which we took is to essentially focus on Africa as the initial template for everyone else to follow. And by doing so, the aim is to make sure that we have a strong base of what it means to build on Bitcoin, what it means for Bitcoin to make a meaningful difference, and most importantly, what it means for a people to, for the first time in human history, redefine all the issues that have been propagated across the continent in terms of things that have been done to the continent, in terms of the global standing, really, of the continent when it comes to dictating exactly what the future is. And in trying to do that, the most effective way we found is to make sure that we're decentralizing Bitcoin development primarily in Africa. And what we found out over the last couple of years of operating is that Africa has, if not the most talented base of developers, the talented base of developers. All our developers so far that have gone out through our grants programs or our alumni have gone on to the world to show that Africa is not here, again, like I said, to be a bystander, but honestly to lead the movement. They've done so meaningfully contributing to projects like Bitcoin Core, which sit at the base level of infrastructure, all the way up to engaging in terms of blogs, writing out resources, and honestly setting themselves apart from everyone else in terms of really understanding and grokking exactly what Bitcoin means for the world and humanity and our place in human history. And I think the most important aspect to highlight in terms of this journey so far has been BTrust Builders. BTrust Builders honestly started out as a general concept of how can we most effectively provide all the infrastructure that it will require for individuals to go from not exactly knowing how to meaningfully contribute as developers to becoming some of the most leading folks in terms of voices as well as contributors. And what we found is a variety of, I guess, approaches. And the primary one that works is honestly focusing on 3 aspects. The community of developers that we're building, which is continuously growing, and over the last 3 years has gone from essentially 10 folks all the way up to over close to 500 people around Africa. And in terms of the other aspects, and in terms of the other aspects we've also seen is, we've seen that it's very important for developers to have all the necessary infrastructure to onboard them into becoming actual Bitcoin developers. And for a lot of us that got into the space through, honestly, what was really just a rugged approach of just challenging ourselves, has become a really standardized platform for a lot of people to go from really just understanding surface level exactly what Bitcoin is to positioning themselves as honestly leaders in this movement. And the last one is obviously supporting these developers, which brings me to grants. I think the most important thing to consider is we're building the best type of money. Like, that is what we're really doing with Bitcoin. And it makes no sense for developers to give up all this time, sacrifice their energy, without necessarily having some sort of meaningful sustenance for them to engage in this. And that's why we decided to make sure that for them to have a sustainable career, not only are we providing all the tools and resources for them to become developers, but also providing a very suitable and essentially a sustainable means for them to continue this work, which is why even not looking at how we essentially distribute grants, we've made sure that our approach is essentially to provide 2 aspects. So one is very, very difficult, I've seen with all the conversations yesterday, that for any developer to get into open source, mostly because of the difference in terms of a focus not away from goals that are geared towards a company or profit making, but a geared towards collaboration, community, as well as building together and inclusively. So I think a lot of the things that we had to realize is we have to bucket it out. So we have to essentially meet people where they are. We have to make sure that individuals have an opportunity to have some sort of self-discovery, which a lot of us need, honestly, to make sure that we understand where we fit overall, and to make sure that they're supported during this journey, which is why we have the BTrust starter grants. What it aims to do is provide these developers really the opportunity and the space for them to navigate the open source ecosystem unencumbered by any sort of dictatorial processes or any sort of, I guess, external influence, and to make sure that they find their footing. And once they do so, they eventually graduate up to the other grants that we provide, which is long-term support. Essentially, starter grants are 6 months, roughly, depending on what the trajectory is of the individual developer on a case-by-case basis. And when they get to the stage where they're now a lot more comfortable, they understand exactly what the process is, all the way up to getting into more long-term support, then they apply for what we call the BTrust open source cohort, where essentially they have mentors that are paired, as well as a growing community of other developers that are leading not only Bitcoin Core, but other important projects. And with that, I really like to say, we've learned a lot. I can tell you firsthand, and definitely the other folks that are doing this type of work and the board members can also testify to this, building on Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, having a paradigm shift, because honestly, this is not something that has ever been around in human history, is not easy. And that is why moving into 2025, we're extremely careful and extremely focused, I'd say hyper-focused really, on making sure that we have efficient structures that would help ensure that this ecosystem really continues to honestly outlive everyone in this room, and to make sure that our kids' kids have the opportunity to benefit from a technology that has continued to liberate a lot of people around the world, continue to restore financial freedom, agency, as well as ensuring that individuals around the world not only benefit from the current use cases that we see, as well as the value proposition of Bitcoin, but to also discover novel ways in which people currently are not even looking at how to use Bitcoin, whether it's electrification or even beyond that, or some of the antecedent or consequential things that really can come out of humanity. So the approach really for us is to split out a couple of things that we're already doing and to double down. So in terms of how we're onboarding developers, we've realized that there are a lot of benefits to having certain strategic bases around the continent to ensure that we're spurring and catalyzing really the movement. That is involved with BitDevs, which we're going to continue to double down in terms of ensuring that developers have a home base in a lot of these cities in Africa to make sure that there's some sort of meeting point for them to coordinate as well as synthesize in terms of how they want to place themselves in the future. Another thing that we're looking at doing is the way to approach grants has continued to evolve. And I'm very proud that BTrust has been at the forefront when it comes to that type of evolution in collaboration with other organizations, whether it's OpenSats or some of the others that are giving out grants. And we're also rolling out the same approach by providing subcommittees. And the idea with that is to make sure that we're not providing any sort of arbitrary means of determining who gets to get a grant or not. We're removing effectively our egos, ourselves, our prejudices from this whole process, and ensuring that those that are already engaging in this industry productively on the open source side help us navigate really some of these applications to understand and give more context and clarity for the board to make a decision. Other than that, we're also looking at strategically focusing on ensuring that our grants are a lot more varied. Because we've noticed that if we say Africa is building the future, there'll likely be a situation where we'll need tools, services, and the likes that are built for Africa by Africans. And what that means is the way in which people understand grants of essentially taking folks to the most popular products possible has to shift into looking at how can we actually spur projects from the continent, and how can we make that sustainable in terms of getting projects that become just as equally important as other projects like BDK or some of the others, which is why we're looking at also expanding our grant services as well in 2025. Other than that, I'd say, just in closing with regards to 2025, before I get to some other points, is BTrust has really learned a lot about exactly how effectively to position ourselves to make sure that we're not, again, in the way of progress, but helping progress. So I want to take a bit of a personal look here, honestly, and I'd like to connect to the developers out there, specifically folks around, the young population really that we have on the continent. And what I like to say is, it's hard. Africa has a lot of problems, and it's one of those things where it's really difficult for whether it's young people or people who have been around on the continent not to have a general sense of apathy or some sort of lack of encouragement really to make a difference given the gravity or the enormity of the issues that we have on the ground. But what I'd like to say is Bitcoin is really not one of those things where you could look at and say it's going to solve all our problems. The way to look at Bitcoin is for you to get a holistic solution to a lot of problems, you need to make sure that you have some sort of a base or a foundation. So I like for you all to think of Bitcoin essentially as just a foundational layer that we can build upon to ensure that we have a prosperous, hopeful, and abundant future for Africa. And in terms of my plea, honestly, to developers is there are a lot of distractions. And one thing to keep in mind is the same way we talk about achievements from great scientists over the last couple of centuries or millennia, an important thing to look at is the combination of focus, determination, and making sure that you're focusing on things that will last, or honestly even outlast you, is the only way that you could really make meaningful difference and change in the world. And with Bitcoin, we have that opportunity where, for the first time in human history, we have this little small crack in time where we can redefine what it means exactly to be a useful person in the world, what it means to change Africa as a whole, which a lot of people have looked on as honestly an impossible task. But I firmly believe that with a critical mass of conscientious developers, as well as those that reflect the resiliency of Bitcoin, we're able to get there. And what I like to say is the future is not written in stone. The future is a reality that we get to create. And I like to also note that it's important to understand the biggest impediment to change is inaction. And the biggest accelerator to change is action. So we want to make sure we have a very multivariated base of developers that are ensuring that they understand this focus, and they're really geared towards ensuring that they're helping with this. So what I would say honestly is we really don't want to make a scenario where we're dictating who gets to come into the door, but allowing for the door and honestly the journey to determine those who would get to define exactly how Africa positions itself. And I think in closing, all I'd say is next year what we're piloting is the BTrust Boss program. And the idea with that is to give developers their own opportunity to define where exactly they end up in the Bitcoin ecosystem, but have all the necessary support for them to get all the way up to the end. And in closing, what I'd like to say is, honestly, Africa, I firmly believe, will continue to make Bitcoin work. And that is the only reason why Bitcoin would eventually work everywhere else in the world. And I'd say this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over the next couple of years and decades. But the most important thing for us, honestly, to think about in terms of moving forward is to make sure that we have a solid base to operate from. Because without that solid foundation, everything else that we're doing is essentially just a wrinkle in time. So what I'd like to say is, please and please, there are a lot of distractions around the world. There's a lot of folks trying to pull us apart. There are a lot of folks that are trying to redefine exactly what the priorities should be. But it's very obvious. Even if you're trying to change, you need to understand exactly where you're coming from and how to operate strategically. So what I say in closing, honestly, is that in Africa, our biggest asset is not only our talent, but it's also our adversity. And the reason why I say that is that people with a problem are honestly the best fit to have that same capacity and potential to become a people with the solution. And I firmly believe Africa has the solution for not only ourselves, but the rest of the world. Come join us, make this a reality. Asante.
Wow. Have you guys been tweeting statements that stood out to you? 2 people? Bring out your phones. Go on Twitter. The people with the problem are the ones that should come up with the solution. How did he put it? I told you, he's very, very smart. I can't even remember now. Hashtag ABC24. Tweet that. The people with the problem are in the best position to come up with the solution. If you don't remember anything else from what he said, please, let's give him another round of applause. So some of you are starting to get sleepy, which, it's not a good thing. I don't want you to miss any of these keynote addresses. We only have 2 more. So please, let's get on our feet. Please, let's stand up and just face somebody and ask them, is your Bitcoin wallet too heavy? I can always help you to relieve. We don't want any overweight wallets here. Please tell them that you are more than willing to help them relieve the weight. Some of you did not ask anybody because you are afraid, because you are the one with the bigger wallet. Is your wallet too heavy? I can help you. I can carry your burdens for you. Thank you so much. Let's be seated. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the next session, I am so excited and I am also curious. The title of this next keynote address is Permissionless is an Understatement, Building on Bitcoin for Billions. And our speaker, all the way from South Africa, guys. I said all the way from South Africa. You can do better. All the way from South Africa. He told me to call him KN. I said, KG. Exactly. You were there now when he was talking. He said I should call him KG. I said, no, my brother. I will try my best. I may get fired after I butcher his name. But his name is Hogtatso Ngako. And he's a catalyst. He's also the founder of a company called Machankura. Please, give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Oh, much appreciated, right? Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm wearing my office clothes today, so yeah, fossil fuels for Africa. So, shout out to Jasper in the back. If you want some suit yourself, he'll hook you up, and yeah, they're doing a wonderful job. Basically, there's a graphic that shows you the proportionality between energy usage and economic output, right? The more energy you use, the more economic output you have. And effectively speaking, Fossil Fuels for Africa is one of the few organizations that are dealing with that problem, and I'd like to shout out all the work that they are doing in the back there. And yeah, cool. So, on this, let me prelude the statement. Permissionless is an understatement, right? So yeah, Bitcoin is a permissionless peer-to-peer network, and yeah, you could build anything you want, right? As long as you can figure out what it is you want to build. As Abu Bakr said, the people with the problem come up with a solution. And yeah, so if you have a problem, can you figure out what the solution for that problem looks like with the tool that you have? As they say, whoever has a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And lucky for us, Bitcoin is a lot more flexible than a hammer, right? It's an energy consumer, it's a store of value, is a medium of exchange, is a so on and so forth. And yeah, so let me go back. If you want to learn more about this, come through to Cape Town, Adopting Bitcoin 2025, January 24 to 26. And yeah, we'll be talking about this. Imagine having a parallel to society where instead of being a South African, you're a Bitcoiner. Instead of using the Rand, instead of using the Kenyan shilling, you use Bitcoin. And yeah, you use apps like Tando when you're in another country and you don't have to worry about anything else. Cool. So yeah, it actually looks better than I thought. These are my slides, right? But I thought maybe it was too much information, so I kind of cut it down. But yeah, so I kind of took all the companies and all the projects that are here, and I made a crossword puzzle out of it, right? And if you want to fill out the crossword puzzle, just come to our booth, the Machangura booth. Oh, Tabo has, give me one. Yeah, so you can then fill it out. This is the complete version of it, and the clues are all there. Tando is there. If you know what clue Tando is, shout it out and then fill it out in the form. And yeah, the Machangura booth, you'll find the crossword puzzle there. And yeah, so this, though, is the crossword puzzle that I'm going to do the presentation based on, because I just wanted people to not have a hard time reading stuff. Right? And as I was sitting down, I was like, oh, the crossword is quite interesting because, you know, Bitcoin blocks, and every Bitcoin company kind of intersects with every other Bitcoin company in the world. It's not like you're just independent and doing your own thing. You're doing your own thing that matches up with what somebody else is doing. And I think the intersections of a crossword puzzle symbolize what it is we are actually doing in this space, right? So yeah, crossword puzzle, the Machangura booth, fill them out. And yeah, so now I'm just going to skip this. And yeah, the first clue. What is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system? Bitcoin, right? Cool. So you go to line 19 and then you fill out Bitcoin going down. And then we are all Satoshi, right? And that is the magic of it all, because Satoshi hasn't been around for the past 10 years. And if you are building anything in the Bitcoin space and you want somebody to tell you what to build, I'm sorry, you have to be Satoshi, right? Nobody told Satoshi to build Bitcoin, and nobody told Satoshi to use Hashcash, and nobody told him to blah, 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 blah. So, as I said in the other talk, if you were the BTrust Developers Day, you have to, thank you. You have to make the decisions that determine what it is you're going to build. And not only that, but how you're going to build it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work, right? It doesn't have to be good. It just has to work, which is also a nice thing about Bitcoin. It's not perfect. Maybe it's not good, but it works, right? And cool. What was founded by Julian Assange in 2006? Yet another statement of the permissionless nature of Bitcoin. Who knows how Bitcoin and WikiLeaks intersected? Yeah, their bank account was shut down. They accepted Bitcoin, right? And they kept operational until they decided, you know what? We cannot debank these people. Let's just put this dude in jail. And yeah, well, he's free now. So Julian Assange is free. Applause to that. And then, there's another person who looked at the landscape of the Bitcoin mining side, right? And the person is in this room. And he was like, yo, it's really nice that we have ASIC mining today, but it's really not nice that they are all closed source, right? First, let's shout the guy's name. If you know his name, shout him out. And what is the project that he built out? And yeah, so this is yet another example of the permissionless nature of Bitcoin. You could really say, nah, man, all of these commercial miners are closed source, and I want to do something about it. And you could actually do something about it. Isn't that crazy to think about? And not only that, people are crazy enough to say, yeah, let me buy a BitX and solo mine because, you know, I do pay for the electricity and the internet. And if I do win the Bitcoin lottery, I'm going to brag about it for decades and centuries. And what's longer than a century? Millenniums? Yeah, because Bitcoin is forever too, right? And yeah, at the frontier of mining Bitcoin in Africa. Which company is that? So, you know something, I love Gridless, right? I love the name, I love everything, I love the people, because I live in South Africa, and we have load shedding. Right? And it's funny, when the Kenyan power grid goes down, they always tweeting about there's no power in Kenya, but there is power in all the sites that they are mining from. Right? And gridless, I think, is also the future. If we go back to the conversation of energy usage and economic output, I don't think the central power grid can work anymore because it is very open to espionage. right? It's like a political system. Democracy works, but espionage works better. Right? You end up in a situation where somebody nobody likes is a president, and the whole country is protesting over a bill that he suggested. Oh, shout out to all the Kenyans who are protesting, and RIP, RIP. So, yeah, Gridless. Great company, and they're doing a wonderful job, and I think we can all learn from them. I want you guys to figure out how to have a power plant in my house, right? Just for my family. I don't need anyone else connected to it, and mine is too. Cool. And then, who says buy as much Bitcoin as possible? Sailor, right? And, hey, man, this dude right here is nuts, right? Somebody needs to tell him to go to therapy. He does not need all this Bitcoin, right? But the thing, though, I like is he is one of the few people who tell you what they're going to do, and then they do it, right? And it's also shocking that there's not enough people like that. I believe that there's only 300 Bitcoiners in the world, right? Just by judging what a few of them do, like your Michael Saylors, your Jack Dorseys, your Nayib Bukele. And you have to ask yourself, like, if there was more than 300 Bitcoiners in the whole world today, would we not have hyper-Bitcoinization already? Would we not have more than one country that has Bitcoin as legal tender? Would we not have a more speculative tax on whatever national currencies, blah, blah, blah? South African rand. If you are CEO of a public company in South Africa, I'm not saying what you should do, but I'm just saying, you know. Yeah, so we need more Bitcoiners because 300 is not a high enough number for all the work that needs to be done. Right? And for every bit of life, this is one of my favorite companies in the space. Nobody knows. Azteco, right? Azteco sells Bitcoin vouchers, and their whole idea is, yo, not everyone can use an exchange. And fun fact, not everyone even wants to use an exchange because an exchange is for traders and speculators and sometimes even gamblers, right? And I want my grandmother to be able to buy Bitcoin whenever she feels like it. And Azteco is one of the best ways for people like my grandmother, people like myself, who have deleted all the exchange apps from my phone, to buy Bitcoin. I just want to go to the corner store and take whatever cash I have in my pocket, because I don't want to have cash in my pocket anyway, and turn that into a Bitcoin voucher, redeem that for Bitcoin. And this is their slogan. They just rebranded for every bit of life. And yeah, wonderful company. I feel like if I wasn't building my Chankura, I would be working for them. Right? This is how much I love the work that they are doing. And so making Bitcoin more than an investment. Right? I think this one is a little harder to get. But the same guy who got Azteco would probably get where this is coming from too. Corner, where's Corner? Okay, this is from Spiral, right? And Spiral and the work that they do is making Bitcoin more than an investment. Yes, buy as much Bitcoin as possible, but it's not just an investment, right? It's a tool that is very flexible. So you could use it as an investment. You could use it as an energy consumer. What else could you use it for, right? Some people want to use it in everything. You could use it in Nostra and so on and so forth, right? And so empowering communities everywhere. Fedi, right? And Fedi is empowering communities everywhere, which is a very important thing because as a society, we, come together a lot and we do a lot of stuff in community with each other, right? And I think apps like Fedi that are dealing with the problem of, okay, yes, we have wallets that work very well for individuals. Yes, we have exchanges that work very well for individuals. But how do you then bring communities in? Because you will need those communities to speed up the hyper-Bitcoinization that needs to happen, right? And so my trust in you is broken. Yet another great example of the permissionless nature of Bitcoin, right? And yet again, permissionless is an understatement, right? So imagine right now, you are a customer to any business, whatever is your favorite business, and for some reason, you're like, damn, these guys really did me dirty. I'm going to take them out of business. and you succeed in doing that, right? So for me, the work that Nicholas did is just crazy, and it's one of the things that make being a Bitcoiner fun, but it reiterates the point that there's not enough Bitcoiners, right? Somebody has to make the decision that, you know what, all the services, all the businesses, not all of them, but most of them are not good for people, and they are not good for the consumer. And we need to do something to fix that problem. If your trust in a system, in an institution is broken, you have the willpower, and maybe you don't have the work ethic, but do some push-ups every day, and then maybe the work ethic will find you wherever you need to be, and you can build the new system that needs to be built, right? Yeah, so let me see if I'm wrapping up. Oh yeah, use Bitcoin without an internet connection. Oh yeah, that's me. Oh, fun time. So yeah, this is of course the spirit that I'm building the service with, right? Permissionless is an understatement. I want to see more people using Bitcoin, especially across the African continent, and that's why I consider myself a catalyst. So I would like to speed up the process, right? I don't need to wait for everyone to get a smartphone. If I already know that across the continent we do USSD apps, right? And if I already know that the service that are even offering an API into those apps, especially if you can program a SIM card, and you know, so it goes on and on and on. So basically, I just want to see more blocks on this crossword puzzle, right? So if we go back to the first slide, I want there to be 5 more slides like this, maybe next year. But I'm not going to be here next year because I don't want to travel anymore. But whoever is going to do slides using a crossword, I hope they get like 5 more. Or maybe I'll just do the crossword and then send it, and then somebody could fill it out. And yeah, but I want to have, like, every day we should have a new crossword puzzle based on Bitcoin companies or the work that they're doing, right? And yeah, so far so good. I really love what everyone in the space is doing. And yeah, I think I am already out of time. Okay, 30 seconds left. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it there, and thank you very much for your attention and your time.
Thank you so much, first of all, for making it interactive. Let's give him another round of applause, please. I really want to acknowledge and also thank you guys for your patience this morning so far. And please, give yourself a pat on the back. You've done really well, you know, through all the... some of you did not pat yourself at the back. Pat yourself at the back. You've done really well. Are you not proud? Some of you did not sleep at all. If you were sleeping, hopefully now you're awake. And we're actually almost done with the keynote addresses. Just one more. And then the fireside chats. So, to talk to us about how Bitcoin can create a more decentralized and efficient energy grid, please help me to welcome to the stage Eric Hensman. Eric Hensman is the CEO of Gridless. Give him another round of applause, please.
Good morning, everybody. I know as you saw me walk on stage, you said, there's somebody who grew up on a dusty village in South Sudan. But it's true. So before I came to Kenya, I lived in South Sudan. My parents were linguists. They were working on taking a language that had only an oral tradition and making it into a written tradition. This is something that takes 10 to 15 years. It takes a long time. One of the fascinating parts about growing up there was that the money that was used was actually cattle, okay? So the Tupos had been using this for many years, and each of these white beads represents a herd of cattle, so roughly 20. So this is 120 cattle that are accounted for on this one string of beads, and you can see people wearing 4 to 6 of these at one time. If you needed something smaller than that, you use goats. If you need something smaller than that, you break it down to beads. And then my sister and I, you see there pumping our water. My parents built this metal house that we lived in. Was, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have power. We had paraffin lamps and candles. And we made do with that, and we were fine. But one of the things I think that's very important for all of us to understand is that we have a lot of electricity. We're used to our Wi-Fi working. When we go to the hospital, we expect it to be open at night. Our water runs out of our faucets, right? And we're a little bit distanced from what make one Bitcoin. Let's make that real. What does it mean to you or I, make one Bitcoin? Let's make that real. What does it mean to you or I? Well, that same amount of energy would power different amounts of energy in different places in different homes, right? So in the US, it's very different than it is in Africa, than it is in Asia. The story of human progress is the story of energy. Energy is the base layer for all of this progress. It doesn't matter if it's healthcare or grades, education. It doesn't matter if it's security. It doesn't matter if it's productivity. Everything is built on this one main source. So there's this fantastic little video put together, a documentary put together by the BBC called The Human Power Station. I'm just going to show the beginning of it for you to understand what it looks like.
Hello, welcome to a very special edition of Bang Goes the Theory. Now, we've put up this house outside our studio, and inside a family of 4 are fast asleep, and they're here to take part in a massive experiment. The only thing is, they've absolutely no idea what that experiment is. In fact, we've genuinely no idea whether or not it's going to work. Liz, are we up and running in there?
We are indeed, Dallas. We are about to do something that no one in the world has ever tried to do before. We're going to unplug that house from the main supply and try to power it in a completely different way. Welcome to the Human Power Station.
"12 grueling hours, 80 human dynamos. But just one question. Can we really pull this off?"
Oh my God, guys!
So you can still find this on YouTube, and I really suggest you watch it because it's really funny. One of the interesting parts is that it took 24 cyclists to heat the oven and 11 to provide the energy just to make 2 slices of toast. So why does this matter, right? It matters because of this slide that we've seen many times before, right? Which is there's no such thing as a low energy rich country. If you do not have electricity, much of electricity for your population, you will always be behind those that do. And to give you real numbers on this, the US up in the upper right uses 5.5 times more energy than the whole African continent combined. So when we look at the continent of Africa, we see a major problem, right? Of the 800 million people in the world who don't have any electricity, 600 million of them are in Africa. And in the most recent IEA report that was done this year, in the past 20 years, we've seen major increases in electrification across Asia and Latin America, but Africa has maintained 600 million. We haven't improved at all. Why is that? Because the model's broken. If we want to actually light our world, we have to think about this model completely differently. Every African, the average, uses about 6.1 kilowatt hours per month across the continent, right? That's not a lot of energy. So if you're trying to build a successful energy company and your customers only use 6 kilowatt hours, it's really hard to make returns on that investment. So let's look at it even closer. It doesn't matter if you're in a Malawian village or you're in the United Kingdom. The pockets of wasted energy here are large. You can find it everywhere. So everywhere above the line is not being used. That's stranded power. So at Gridless, our job is to monetize the stranded power. We do that by pushing electrification further to the edges in Africa, looking for these off-grid energy sites that aren't utilizing everything that they have. We also do this the other reason we do this is because by pushing the hash rate of these miners to these little areas, we're also decentralizing the Bitcoin network. What does it actually look like for ordinary people? This. So if I'm building an energy site, I've built this energy site on this far left side. I'm only making a small amount of returns. When Gridless comes along, we've fully monetized the stranded power, And we share that revenue in Bitcoin with the energy partner, and they are finally able to be a sustainable company. So I wanted to take a real world example. So this is a 700 kilowatt site in Zambia. It was built more than 15 years ago. It was grant funded at first. Fantastically well built, really well built. Local community was a part of it. In fact, they did it all by hand. There's no machinery used to build this site. It's something that we actually haven't seen much across Africa. That's how well built it was. But over the last 15 years, they've never used more than 35% of the energy that flows from the river through that turbine. So Dan, the owner of it, we started talking about it with him because he'd heard about what we'd done in Kenya. And he said, well, could you come here? So what do we do, really? We take containerized Bitcoin mining and we put it wherever it needs to be, right? So it's this geographically agnostic, buyer of last resort, real-time demand response system for energy. And if you have wasted power, you have to think about what my friend Alex said, which is, at night the people sleep, but the river never sleeps. So there's energy to be monetized here, and that matters. So what does it look like when you're making one of these Bitcoin mines? Well, we start off with a Bitcoin mining container designed here and engineered here and built here in Nairobi because we realized it was about a quarter of the cost of importing one. We then put that on the back of a truck. It could go 2,000 kilometers down to Zambia like this one is. We unload it, and then we start doing our connectivity, right? So Starlink, we also connect to the mobile network operator, so we have a couple different forms of connectivity so we don't drop any shares. Then we load what my business partner Philip calls the world's dumbest computer into these mining containers. They only do one functioning Bitcoin mining container setup in this new site. And that really means something to the owner of this energy. Because that next morning, he picks up his phone, he makes Bitcoin. He sees it in his wallet and he goes, we're having breakfast. There's nowhere to stay here, by the way. We're camping on the side of the river. He looks at it and he's like, I just made money. It's like, yeah, you get that every day, right? You're not waiting for somebody to make payments to you. It's coming. And he looks up and he says, I can finally start thinking strategically about my business. I've never had enough money to even have my power line workers paid on time. And now I can. This is the power of Bitcoin mining in energy. So I was curious, right? I wasn't from the energy sector. I'm from the tech world. And Bitcoin mining makes sense to me because we built hardware and infrastructure before. But I didn't know anything about energy when we started. So I read about 17 research papers on airplane flights, which is the best place to do it. And I wrote my own paper to make sense of it, which I called Energy and Bitcoin in Africa, right? And the basics of it is this. So you don't have to read it. It's not important that you read it. What's important is that you understand the problem. The national power grids have gone about as far as they will go. The reason why is because the people who need energy now live in far-flung places and they don't have the population density to get a return on investment of major power grids. So the answer for this is through mini-grids, small energy sites that can be put wherever they're needed. They look like this. They're simple, right? And I broke this down as simple as we can to see just run-of-river hydro. We also operate biomass and geothermal, but run-of-river hydro really is the right answer for Africa. The water comes into a forebay, it goes into a powerhouse, turbine, powers the Bitcoin mining data center, the houses, and the businesses. That Zambian site had about 1,000 families, households on it when we first came there, and just over 200 businesses. So that's maize mills, healthcare, education, government offices, mobile phone towers, all those types of things. By the time this time, I was there a month ago, it was over 1,500 households now, and they needed more of the energy. So what does that mean for us as Bitcoin miners? We turn off miners. That's the answer, right? So we actually turn off miners and move them somewhere else. And this is something that you can also do with Bitcoin mining that you can't do with other industrial off-takers. You can be really, really flexible. So the World Bank states that Africa needs 140,000 mini-grids to meet the demands of the 600 million Africans who don't have power. The African Mini Grids Association claims that there's only 5,000 that have been built. We have a problem. So up until this point, Gridless has been dealing with the symptom, which is how do we make off-grid energy profitable, right? But the disease is that we need more energy built. Well, how do we get more energy built? Well, we need different types of financing because as you saw from that first chart, for 20 years, actually about 60 years, we have had the same model for energy financing and we haven't hardly put a dent in the numbers. It turns out that the same financial technology that enables us to address the symptoms is the tool that also eradicates the disease, which is Bitcoin. In this case, we take Bitcoin and we make it into a financial reactor. We create a treasury that we borrow against with USD, and we can now build tangible assets. So Gridless Energy creates a financial reactor that produces both more energy and more Bitcoin over time, which in turn creates more energy again. So if I was to break it down, it'd be looking like this. We take fiat investment, create a Bitcoin treasury, lock it up with our lender, build energy with it, make more Bitcoin, and put that back into the top again. It's a pretty simple model, and we often wonder why nobody else has done this yet. So Bitcoin financing unlocks this endless energy, and it does it in a couple ways. We use Bitcoin to finance new energy development. We use Bitcoin mining to make energy profitable already, and we use Bitcoin as the market maker for the energy price. And this last one deserves a little bit more explanation. How much do Bitcoin miners get paid? If you were to take our usage of kilowatt hours and breaking it down into dollar cents, we get paid between 7 and 10 cents per kilowatt hour that we use, okay? So anybody who's willing to spend 2 cents more, relatively, just 11 cents more, right? Or sorry, 1 or 2 cents more, so 11 cents or 12 cents, they would be paying us more money. So we should turn off miners and allow them to get it. Well, you say, well, 11 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour, is that expensive? Is that not expensive? Well, we know in rural Africa on off-grid energy, people are paying between 30 to over $1 per kilowatt hour already today. So if they could get this wholesale energy at 12 cents, that's actually cheaper than any of us here in Nairobi pay, right? So they could actually get cheaper energy than the rest of anybody else on the continent this way. There's a new model that actually breaks the current paradigm. So Gridless Energy is going to be doing this. For the last year, we've been doing feasibility studies on our first 3 sites in Malawi and Kenya. And the idea is that we will be on the front edge of this as well as the back edge. We can make it profitable for everybody along the way. So one way that I like to say this to make it even more clear is that in today's model, $20 million would build you 10 megawatts of power. And in 30 years, you'll still have 10 megawatts of power, unless you go raise more money. In the gridless model, where we build a treasury, $20 million converted to Bitcoin builds 1 to 4 gigawatts over that same 30 years. Key benefits, real Bitcoin returns. Thank you. But I don't care about the Bitcoin returns as much as I care about the model being 7 times more capital efficient in 10 years and 148 times more capital efficient in 30. And these are 50-year assets, just so you understand. So why is this important? The economics are just unequaled, right? Sure. But for Bitcoin, it matters because it decentralizes the Bitcoin mining, right? We're moving into small-scale mining happening all over the place. Now, this is already happening, but we need to see more of it. And instead of having these large 100-megawatt, 200-megawatt Bitcoin mining farms, we can have 1 to 3 megawatt Bitcoin mining farms spread across 100 countries. What it does for energy is we can finally make it profitable, sure, but we can also make it a new future for Africans where we can have more reliable power in the places where people live. And for Africa, it just means that we can finally put a dent in that $600 million figure. So there is a near unlimited supply of energy to be developed in the one place on Earth that needs it most in Africa. and Bitcoin is what unlocks it. Thank you.
Another round of applause, please. That was really good. Who's been tweeting? Who's been tweeting? That last slide, can we have it back on? Can you at least tweet that or paraphrase it? You guys need to let the world know that this is happening. How would they know that it's happening if you are not tweeting about it? You are here, you come, you go back home. People don't even know the power that is happening here. So please, bring out your phones. Go on Twitter, hashtag ABC24, write that, and put it on Twitter. At least people will be wondering, what's happening? Why are people tweeting about this? And then they will see the hashtag, they will click it, they will see other things that happened under the hashtag, and then they will get to know that Africans gathered in Nairobi, Kenya, to talk about Bitcoin. So please, tweet about it. Please, let's give him another round of applause. How am I doing so far? It's almost 10, and like I promised you guys, you will soon be out of here. Who's laughing? I told you I have the right watch, so please don't go back by what you're seeing. So please, let's get up. We're starting the fireside chat. Let's stand on our feet and just stretch. Please stand up and stretch. You've been sitting for a while. If you're wearing Apple Watch, he will be telling you by now that you should stand up and stretch. Stretch, stretch. Make sure that you hit the person next to you. And then say you are sorry. Act like you didn't know that they were standing right there. Stretch, stretch very well. I am so excited about this next segment because you guys can have your seats. We're about to talk about Bitcoin for peace and freedom. Bitcoin is doing wonders, guys. And so we'll be talking about stories from Palestine and Somalia. And to moderate this fireside chat is Meron Estafanos. She's my Eritrean sister. She's actually Eritrean, but she grew up in Sweden. And then her company is in Uganda. And she is the founder of Bitcoin Innovation Hub. She will be introducing the panelists. Please give her a round of applause. A real round of applause, please. All the way from Eritrea, Sweden, Uganda. She's what we call the United Nations. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good, good. So, actually, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. So I'll start with Hadia.
If I turn it on, that's how it works, right? When you turn it on. I'm Hadia. I run an organization around community peace building, resilience building, human rights, women's empowerment, and bringing voices to the voiceless.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah. So I set this up in 2020 as what I witnessed was a lot of young kids being drawn into extremism and hateful, dangerous ideologies, and nobody was caring about their future. So I was somebody who had witnessed it. It genuinely upset me what I saw. So I set up Groundswell to try and, I guess what everyone's doing here, solve a problem. And that's how I fitted in. I didn't think I fitted in, but solving problems.
Thank you. And Fadi?
Good morning. My name is Fadi Salamin. I'm Palestinian American, and I'm a fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute.
So, Hadia, can you tell us how is your organization using Bitcoin?
That's a funny one, actually, because when I was looking at all of these things, the builders, the technologists, and I was thinking, how on earth do I fit in? And then I saw the Human Rights Foundation. I was like, oh, maybe this is where I could get in. But I still didn't understand how. And then as I got to learn, I realized everyone puts themselves inside of Bitcoin, if you see what I mean. Like, we reflect what that means. And what I'm trying to explain is the very seed of Bitcoin, from what I learned, was it's very altruistic. So Satoshi Nakamoto, and he could have been a person or a group of people. The idea was we plant this seed where human beings from any walk of life, any religion, any race, has the opportunity for prosperity. And I was like, wow. So all of the technology stuff went right over my head, but that resonated with me. And so that's how I started to become more interested. What do you mean? How does this solve problems? And I saw how, with my work, people have so many barriers. There are blocks everywhere. There are women who are being, subjected to domestic violence. They cannot leave their house. That is a block. But if we put a lifeline of Bitcoin to them, could we relieve that block? War zones. There's a block. People cannot leave the countries. My own grandfather couldn't leave his country easily. But if there was a lifeline of Bitcoin, he could do that. Like we saw, Eric showed the beads. This is how many Africans store value. But if there's a drought and a farmer cannot get access to money, he's destitute and his family are. So you see where I'm going with this. There are just solutions to these problems that I can see. And Fadi will say, even in war zones, I won't take that part away from you, but that's how, as well, I'm seeing Bitcoin solving issues and being that altruistic way of solving different problems in the world. Even when I was watching CK, there was a tuk-tuk driver as well. So literally anyone and everyone who is in a situation can benefit from this.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the women that you are helping? Who are they? And
so I'm very privileged to have my sister in the audience. Hanan, please stand up. She's an MBE and won awards from the Queen, but her passion has been inspiring to me for the past 15 years. I've been working with her, and she's very proud to be involved with Somaliland and the future of Somaliland. Everybody is so excited for her. She's going to be at the inauguration. So just a round of applause for Somaliland, and I hope that it's going to be a great, great place. And if Hanan's in it, it will be. So Hanan is very interested in bringing women to the table of peace building. Women need to be at the forefront of this discussion. But guess what? There's another block. The block is that men in the various countries, they are blocking women from becoming part of politics. But if we can give the lifeline again, we can lift that up and provide support for women to come to the table and, bring peace. So this is the type of work I want to do with my African sisters and, different parts of the world with this philosophy.
how easy or how hard was it teaching traditional African women to receive Bitcoin?
It's quite fun, actually. We had, with the power of technology, you can WhatsApp somebody from London and have like a discussion. And I brought my brother Abu Bakr in as well. And what he parted with his knowledge is, what I love about this community is everyone is so far so loving and so giving, and that's what we need to maintain. The vibrant, positive energy should be reflected to Bitcoin. Otherwise, I see this tree that is giving and giving, but it'll only give as long as we give. If we start sucking out resources and doing this hodling business and not spending money, then that's quite the antithesis to what, what the principles are. So back to your question, it was quite fun. I opened up Hanan a wallet, and, she's, become orange-pilled while she's been here, and she's so in love with everybody. So she's definitely going to use, and she met with Abu Bakr as well. So you've got activists, technologists coming together and building something quite profound and amazing. So it's, we're unashamedly very, very hopeful and positive. So.
Thank you. Fadi, tell us, when did you start using Bitcoin? Turn it on.
We're not technologists, that's why we're like hippies.
So I grew up in the West Bank. I was...
No, it's still on.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I grew up in the West Bank until I was about 14, and then moved to the U.S. and did my education there. But ever since I was a young, as a kid, I used to be a street vendor. I would sell things on the street, corn, falafel, all these things. That was how I made my money. We were a modest family, oldest of, I was the oldest of 9 children, and very lucky to have had a scholarship and studied in America. And I really wanted to give back to the village and the people that I came from, and I wanted to see if I could help. And I started by, raising awareness around 2010-11 about corruption within Palestine, and then faced a lot of pushback. Had my accounts frozen at the time, and then as a result, a few years later, with the help of friends like Alex Gladstein and others, I started turning towards Bitcoin. But today, it's a different case of use, and I'm sure most of you are aware of what is happening in Gaza. And we're almost at a time where I'm really worried about our future as human beings, regardless of who you are or where you're from or what you believe in. And a world where a 10-year-old has to write her living will because she doesn't know if she will live another day is not a good world for us, is not a good world for our children, is not a world that I want to watch without doing something about. And I'm not talking hypotheticals. I want to just share a few stories about why I'm doing more with Bitcoin in Palestine, in Gaza, even in Israel and in other places, because I do see the world today as a very dark place, but I do see also glimpses of hope, and sadly, they're in relating to our world here, they're just 2 words, Bitcoin and Nostr. But I just want to read to you what the future looks like, and if we don't do something about it, it doesn't look good.
Let's wait with that, and I want you to walk us through how was it, the usage of Bitcoin before the conflict, before October 7, and the difference now, how is Bitcoin saving lives in Palestine, in Gaza, or in West Bank?
In the West Bank, it's a little easier, obviously. In Gaza, there's nothing now. There are no banks, no hospitals, no universities, no schools, clinics, UN schools. Basically, when I speak with people, they tell me it looks like the end of the world is here, and we're just roaming, going from one place to another without knowing where we are going. We don't know where we're going to sleep. We don't know where we're going to get our next meal from. We don't know if we can... basically, just imagine people walking around with nothing on them, not knowing where to go, and not knowing what the next hour or next day will look like. I spoke with some friends who told me that, we would find a house in the middle of the night, knock on the door and say, would you please just let our sisters or, our mothers use your bathroom, or just rest for the night until the next morning, just until light comes out in the next morning, and then we'll continue. So it looks, basically, you have 2 million plus people who are under extremely, extremely distressful situation, and there is no way to access fiat money. There's no way to do anything, and even people who are getting paid and getting salaries, there's just no bank to go to. The banks don't exist anymore. So that's more or less what I realized I need to do, and I've been sending Bitcoin to people who want to go out and get out of Gaza into Egypt. I've been sending Bitcoin to people who are already in Egypt and they don't know how to start their life. The people who just walked, families with nothing, literally nothing. And they need to buy everything from toothbrush to shoes to, but, Palestine in particular is an interesting case because it's possible where this could be a case where Bitcoin could be one day the main currency and the only currency, because right now there is no central bank. We do not have a currency of our own. And so because of Gaza and because of how things are developing, there are people who are moving their money, and these are wealthy, traders or people who created companies, moving their money entirely into Bitcoin because they realize this is the only way I can access it, even in the midst of destruction, in the midst of complete chaos. And so that's more or less what is happening. There's one story that I do like to tell because I feel like it's the only way I can honor my friend who lost his son. Is a 10-year-old son. My friend lives in Egypt. His son lived in Gaza with his mother, with the entire family. And he's his only son, and he basically would tell me, Fadi, it's the only reason I'm living, literally the only reason I'm dealing and working just so I can support him and his mother. One day I get a message from him right after the war happened, and he says, Fadi, is there anything you can do? Is there anything you can help me with? You live in Washington, maybe you know some people, but I need to get my son out. I need to get his mother out. And I tried every which way I could. I failed. I could not get him out or anybody else. Few days later, he tells me that, and it was all over the news, that his 10-year-old son, his mother, the entire family was literally killed in one bombing. And it took me months to be able to pick up the phone and call him again or even have a conversation. What do you say to someone who lost their only child, the only reason that they had to live? And with the help of other friends, I was able to sort of move him to start saying, and thinking, hey, you could help others just resettle. You could help other families who couldn't, who could get their kids out. And the only way I could really do that is by being able to send him money. And I couldn't send a wire transfer to Egypt because there's all kinds of corruption issues. So the only way I'm doing it, other people are doing it, is Bitcoin. And maybe if there's one good thing that came out of this whole entire chaos is that everybody started realizing, okay, maybe there's a whole area where we could invest our money, we could rebuild our life in Gaza one day using Bitcoin. So there's all kinds of Palestinians now, whether in Egypt or Dubai or other places, the only way they will send money or deal with this chaos is entirely just by using Bitcoin. So that's my focus. That's what I want to do. There's nothing else I'm interested in. If you could help me, if there's something that you can do to help me do this in Gaza and in other places in Palestine, please do. Please reach out. But I'm being genuine when I say right now, Bitcoin and the whole entire idea of decentralization, moving from under the thumb of whatever authority that wants to just keep you, below, is the only hope that I see for me, for other Palestinians, and for my people, and people who are even like all over the Middle East, like places like Syria, Lebanon, people who are really being held down and controlled with, and being repressed, especially financially and in other ways.
I've been donating money. I've been donating Bitcoin to Palestinians that are in Palestine. So 5 months ago, I sent Bitcoin, and so the person that I sent to, the exchange rate was, they took 27% out of $100. So could you tell us how are Palestinians exchanging? I know it's different places right now. Last week I sent and it was 30% that they took. But you told me there are some that are taking 1%. So could you tell us about it more?
Yeah, so it really, in Palestine, it depends who you know and where you are and all of that. There's always all kinds of bad human beings who will take advantage of every situation. I've managed to develop a network where I will not take any sort of transaction fee because it's life and death, literally. This is not the time to be, taking advantage of a financial opportunity. So I've activated friends who have money and they're able to help when they receive the Bitcoin. Some convert it to USDT. Some will just move it as is, as Bitcoin, and send it to others. It really depends who you're talking to and who you're dealing with. There isn't one space where this is the Bitcoin exchange place where you can go and exchange your Bitcoin. That doesn't really exist. It's just who you know and how you can get that money to the right people and get it exchanged.
Hadiya, so how is Bitcoin usage? How are the women in Somaliland exchanging the Bitcoin that you're sending them? Could you give us an example? What's the percentage?
Give you.
Right now, I'm just going to be honest, this is a very new thing for us. We're interested in seeing how this progresses, but we did try use Tanda, and we gave Bitcoin, and someone was able to buy medicine as a result, so it's working. So this is, as the technology is getting better, it's easier to exchange because people don't adopt something that's not practical at the end of the day. And when we see this practicality and the technology improving, we'll see the adoption better.
What's next for your organization?
Just on that point is to key into our existing networks where we have this trust, which I've been building it's painstaking to build trust over 10, 15 years. And I want to utilize my connections to tell people how this can free their lives and bring peace. And what I find about Africa, it's a very spiritual nation. We have, in this concept of desiring for yourself desiring for your brother what you want for yourself. This is a concept that is around all the various faiths and religions. Even if you're not a faith, it resonates with us. And this concept of when you give, you don't lose. This is also a very big concept. So with these principles, I will keep doing what I do and see where Bitcoin can just be a tool and be utilized to help the existing work that we're doing.
All right. How can people learn more about your organization? Do you have a website?
Yeah, we have a website. It's called Groundswell Project. You can. I'm not on Twitter, but I'm on LinkedIn, and there's some pictures there. Follow me on LinkedIn, Hadiya Masih, and see some of the photos. I've taken actually some very moving pictures of the unions made at this conference. Very powerful. And what I want to say to everyone as well is this is such a hopeful time. And when I've been hearing the speeches, like this is the time for those who have been told they've got no prospects to actually turn that on its head and say, yes, we are the kings and queens of our own destiny. And that's not just speech, that can actually happen. So, yeah, I just want you guys to keep up this positive energy because that's what we'll feed into Bitcoin. And as soon as we come any other way, that's how it will turn as well, if I'm making any sense.
Thank you. And Fadi, how can we help for Palestinians? How do we reach you, or do you have an NGO?
I don't have an NGO. I will probably not have an NGO. I do everything as a person, not as an NGO. And I think that's how you can help. You could do exactly the same thing. Everybody more or less knows an organization, knows a place where they will take Bitcoin. So if you want recommendations, I'm happy to give you recommendations. I don't take donations. I don't raise money from anybody. But I will tell you this organization, this group, that place. I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you. May we see a free Palestine in our lifetime? Thank you.
Please, let's give him another round of applause. So just for you guys to know, someone here today promised to give me 1,000 sats each time I mention his name. His name is Paul. Why are you laughing? You don't even know what I was about to say. And so 1,000 sats is like $1, right? About $1. So my goal is to make at least $100 before I leave this hall today. And so I'm going to say his name, Paul, but I'm not saying it 100 times. I would like for you guys to now help me to say Paul. So he now has to count the number of people in here so that he can pay me my money. So Paul, say Paul. Uncle Paul, please stand up. Let us see you. You cannot run away with my money. He's at the back. He's trying to run away. You see? You don't make that kind of promise without being ready to pay. So now you're owing me at least $200, looking at the people in here. He thought that I wouldn't be able to do it. He was thinking he would only pay $2, but I'm very smart. Am I not? I also want to thank every one of you who's been tweeting. I've been seeing your tweets, and I am very, very grateful. And I'm just going to read some of your tweets, just to shame those who are yet to tweet. Maybe now you can bring out your phones and tweet. Literally, some people are taking pictures of the slides and they are posting it and they are putting hashtag ABC24. You really don't need to write a theology. If you are bored, write I'm bored. Well, don't write I'm bored because obviously you are not bored. If you've been inspired, write I've been inspired at the hashtag ABC24. Please put something on Twitter. Brittany says, Africa is building not by standing. Ooh, Father, give her a round of applause. Where is she? Charles Kelly says, this hashtag ABC24 is fire. Who's Charles? Charles, thank you. We see you. We see your tweet. And Lillian says, a powerful keynote session by our queen, Massey Lorraine. And I am just so grateful that she's tagging ABC24. And Dr. Nabila Fash says, KG is so brilliant. He wants Bitcoin to get to hyper-Bitcoinization. Where are you? Thank you so much. I just want to challenge the rest of you. Tweet something. Let the world know that this is happening. And also, thanks to the 40-something of you that have followed Africa Bitcoin Conference on Instagram, we appreciate you. And now we are at the very last session for this morning. Now it's 10:30. I'm very, very happy that I was able to keep to time. And the very last session, we will be looking at the future of Bitcoin. You know, there's nothing wrong in looking at the present and also the future. And we will be talking about open source and Nostar. And the person that will be moderating this fireside chat is someone that you are all very familiar with. Her name is Ojoma Ochai. Yes, give it up, give it up, give it up. She's a board member at BTrust, a fellow Nigerian sister. Where are my Nigerian people in here? Nigerians. Help me to welcome our sister. Don't worry, the next year we'll come to Nigeria, right? The next year's conference. Why are you guys laughing? There are some enemies of progress here. Village people. They don't want this thing to happen in Nigeria. It will happen, right, my sister? And I will give her the... You are a Nigerian and you are saying this will not happen in Nigeria. I would like for her to introduce our guests that they will be talking about this together. Jack Dorsey, I will let her do the proper introduction. Please give her another round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. I know you guys aren't that familiar with Jack, so I'm going to read his bio. Not. I'd just like to invite Jack to the stage. He needs no introduction. Can you give him a thunderous round of applause, please? Welcome to my parlor, Jack. We're going to be talking about the future of Bitcoin. Obviously, this is not your first time at ABC. You were in Ghana in 2022, and I remember Actually, I don't remember. I watched the video again. But you talked about how you got into Bitcoin, the importance of decentralization. You talked about single points of failure, and just generally about the role that you saw in terms of providing accessibility to people who don't have access currently to the global financial systems. So my first question for you, Jack, is 2 years on, how has that context changed, this world of a decentralized internet? 2 years on, what is different?
Well, first I just want to express some gratitude to Farida and the team. This is incredible. When I was in Ghana 2 years ago, it felt very small but very promising. And today it's just unrecognizable in the best way. And while there's a lot of focus on this stage and attention on this stage, you all know and you all feel that the real magic happens out there. It happens in the hallways, it happens at lunch, it happens at dinner. It happens in like randomly bouncing into people that you don't know and asking them questions and where they're from and what they're doing. I always take on this mindset of every single experience I have, every single person I meet, every mistake I make, every success I feel like I have is a teacher, and I get to decide whether or not to learn from it. And if I don't choose to learn from it, it's a missed opportunity. So while we do have a lot of attention on people speaking on the stage and our presentations, which have been amazing, the real value is what you make out of this conference. And it's not just about the production here, it's about what you bring to it, and most importantly, what you take away from it. So gratitude to all you for making this feel great. The energy has been amazing. And I hope we can continue every single year and we go different places, maybe Nigeria as well. I think over the past 2 years, things have only gotten better. We've only seen more technology and more tools. And I know we're at a Bitcoin conference, but it's not really about Bitcoin. It's about permissionless tools. It's about the fact that anyone can learn how to contribute in whatever way that is relevant or is their skill set. And they can, without asking anyone for permission, build something. They can build code, they can build a product, they can build a company, they can build education to make it relatable and resonant with their community or with their friends or with their family. Every single skill has some quality and has something to give of real impact. So even if you're not a programmer, or you're not a designer, or you don't manage products, or you know nothing about technology, there's something here that you can take away and you can actually make real for someone else. It may be yourself. It's best to solve your own problems. It's best to be a little bit selfish here, because if you're solving a problem for yourself, it's likely that other people have that problem too. And when you demonstrate solving that problem in a creative way that feels great and feels a little bit electric, other people see it and they want to use your solution and your product as well. So over the past 2 years, like we've only seen an increase in these tools, and Bitcoin is just one of them. There's a lot of attention on this number that goes up. Sometimes it goes down, but it goes up over years and years and years. And there's a lot of fixation on that number. And you can get lost in that number. You can get lost in the value that's being created for the people that own it. But all that number is a statement, a very tangible statement of, I believe in the future of this thing. And more people keep believing in the future of this thing. And again, that adds to the ability for people to sacrifice their time to build on this and know that it will probably reach someone who needs it. And that's pretty amazing. But in permissionless technologies, the one I've been most excited about recently is not Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is phenomenal, obviously, and it's a base layer. But media is a big one that has not been solved. We've been constantly talking about how people should be tweeting and how people should be putting stuff on Instagram and YouTube. If you really think about and I built one of those services. If you really think about what you're doing when you're posting that, it's not just reaching your audience. You're actually you're actually doing work for that company for free. Every time you hit the heart, every time you like a post, every time you retweet something, that's a signal to an algorithm, which then takes that and a bunch of other variables and uses that as a way to push into someone else's feed. And all of these algorithms predominantly are only focused on increasing the number of impressions. And the reason why is because that increases the number of advertising revenue for them. It has nothing to do with you. And if you just sorry, if you just observe a little bit and you watch someone on their phone, and there's a bunch of you on the phone in the downtime, and you have Instagram open, you have Twitter open, X, Threads, Blue Sky, maybe not Blue Sky, but whatever it is, you actually just watch them and they're scrolling, tap, tap, scrolling, tap, tap, scrolling, tap, tap. That company has successfully made you an employee without paying you a thing. And we need, if we value what we believe is the value of these services, which is to broadcast to the world and to broadcast our information, our lessons, our learnings, our stories to someone that's going to care about it, we need to own that protocol layer. That protocol layer needs to be permissionless. I should not have to ask Google on whether to build a feature or not. I should not be reliant upon Google's algorithm to tell me what I should pay attention to, because they're programming you. And they can change that algorithm at any point and program you in a different way. And they have in the past, and they will continue to do so. So do you want to live in that world? Do you want to continue to give it your attention? Do you want to continue to work for free? Or do you want to own something where you can build on top of it, and you can control the media, you can control your story, you can control your narrative, along with all the other people that are interested in unleashing themselves from this dynamic that we've created and that we've been trapped into. So I can't think of anything more exciting than the fact that we have money that's completely permissionless, exchange of value, and we have now social media and generally media, which is completely permissionless, which is another exchange of value. And there's another big thing coming. It's on the horizon. We're hearing a lot about it right now, which is artificial intelligence. And you're seeing that it's not just the money that was centralized, it's not just the media that has been centralized, but now intelligence is centralized. And intelligence isn't your IQ score. Intelligence is actually all of the collective intelligence of the people around you, all the potential you have for learning and actually experimenting and sharing that knowledge. Do you want that intelligence to be locked up in 5 companies that are dictated by 5 CEOs that are not voted in, but that can determine, again, how you perceive intelligence, how you perceive the world, and actually what you do because you read those particular things? So decentralizing and making permissionless AI models, LLMs, agent systems, is something that we need to focus on. Everything that we're doing with Bitcoin, everything that we're doing with social media has to be applied to this new model, which is intelligence. And if it's not, then again, you are the product. You are doing free work for these models, and you will be displaced. Your contribution will become irrelevant. And that scares me the most. Yet, we have proven over the past 16 years with Bitcoin that another model exists. The whole world values, some of the biggest companies in the world, Wall Street, BlackRock, actually values. And they didn't choose to get in immediately. They got in because they had to, because the people kept developing it, and this thing is not going away, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And we have the potential, everyone in this room, if you make the decision, I'm not going to contribute purely to corporate media or corporate intelligence or corporate money anymore. I'm going to do the hard thing, and it's extremely challenging right now because it's not accessible, it's not usable, it's confusing as hell. But I'm going to do the work, I'm going to learn it, I'm going to teach it, and I'm going to sacrifice my time and energy to do something that's hard at the moment, because if I do so, it compounds and more people can use it, and it becomes more the standard. So it's really important that we make that decision and that we potentially remove these apps from our lives, or we at least bias towards other solutions that the people actually own, that no one company, no one government can corrupt or change the direction of, and that we can, just because we built something that people value and people go that direction, and another someone builds something of different value and people can find it there. So that's the important thing about all these technologies. Sorry, my answer was so long, but I had to get all that out. It's exciting. Like, it just keeps getting better and better and better and stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's because of all the people in this room that decided to come all the way here, show up, listen, speak, teach, learn, and most importantly, leave this conference with all this knowledge and with all this energy and with this vibe, and spread it, and not as a religion, but spread it as a tool that you can use today, and it makes your life better in just a tiny little bit, and that continues to compound in something much larger.
Thank you, Jack. To the point about it not being a religion, one thing I like to do is test the spirits. And I've been thinking a lot about, in the last 2 years that we're reflecting on, it is exciting, but is there a risk? So we talk about permissionless, we talk about decentralization, we talk about proof of work. Now, in the last 2 years, we've seen lots of companies acquiring and holding on to Bitcoin. We've seen that most of the Bitcoin has been mined. We've seen a lot of global north countries talking about strategic Bitcoin reserves. Is there any risk, even if not in principle, in practice, that we have a situation where Bitcoin is no longer truly decentralized because certain companies, certain individuals, certain countries have outsized influence over the ecosystem?
No, 100%. Like, Bitcoin has been tested over 16 years, and every one of those risks has been around aspects of it becoming centralized. And fortunately, it survived all those tests. We need an open protocol for money transmission. We require it for our future. And Bitcoin has been the most resilient to those attributes, and to make sure that, like, we have something that has that potential. But it will always be tested. We got into mining at Block because we saw that there was a risk in centralization of mining, and specifically one manufacturer who was making these chips that were not open source, that were not customizable, that were terrible in many ways, because you just kind of burn them out and just waste a bunch of resources. So we wanted to build something that competed with that, but also build it in the open and build it with open source principles, because we think we will benefit from that as well, because there's a bunch of people outside of our company that have much better ideas than us and can actually contribute, and all the boats rise because of that. Pooling, mining pooling is another centralizing force. There's a bunch of solutions around this, including Stratum V2. Ocean is a company that's doing that. I see the miners in the front nodding their heads. So every year there's a new centralization risk, and every year there's a bunch of people who look at that risk, face it head on, and decide that they're going to fix it. They're going to fix it because it benefits Bitcoin and it keeps Bitcoin decentralized. So every government is going to try to own this thing, and they have tried in the past and they have failed. And their attacks are going to get greater and greater. And we're going to have even more interesting adversarial attacks against Bitcoin. But I believe in the power and the wisdom of the people. And I believe when that wisdom is applied to technologies and a platform and a protocol that you can build on without permission, that it will solve itself. It may take longer than a company, because a company has a focused roadmap and they're telling people what to do, and they have this incentive of equity or cash, and they can be super, super focused. But Bitcoin is a little bit slower moving, but that also makes it very, very deliberate, very deliberate. And that deliberateness is something we want in our currency. This is how we exchange value. It's what we want in our media so that we trust it. It's what we want in our intelligence so that we understand what we're doing and why. I was looking at your watch, it was telling you to stand. All of these technologies are going to encourage us to do more and more of these things, and we're just going to blindly follow them. And we're not going to question why they're telling us to do these things unless we can participate in the building of that, and we can participate in the outcome, and we have the agency to choose which algorithms we use and which technologies we use and whether we follow its instruction or not. Because if we're blindly following anything, we're not going to be creative. We lose all innovation because creativity is saying no to something. It's going a different path. It's doing something a little bit more unique that some people will laugh at you for, or people will see as an outcast. But over time, it's going to be meaningful. And that's what makes me not be concerned with these governments and these corporations who are trying to own this, because the people are smarter. And we have the tool to coordinate that intelligence and that wisdom and constantly be 10 steps ahead of any adversarial attacks on our money.
Thank you for that. We've got maybe 5 more minutes. I'll try and sneak in 2 questions. I want to turn to utility. Now, you talked about permissionless technologies and the opportunity to build on those technologies. What sorts of utility use cases are you seeing at the moment that excite you, that people are building on these?
Oh, everything on this stage today and yesterday. I mean, it's we haven't talked a lot about Nostr, but Nostr is interesting because it's not just something that tries to replace social media. It's building this ecosystem of apps such that you can create a private key and you can create a public key and you can give out that public key and anyone can follow you. But with your private key, your secret key, you can actually log in to a Twitter-like thing, and your entire social graph follows you, all your identity. And then you can take that to a GitHub-like thing to work on code, and you can take that to a Google Sheets spreadsheet-like thing and work on your documents and your accounting. And it's all the same identity, and you own the data, not a company. They can't ever shut it down. They can't ever change it. You own it. You get to choose what's up and what's down. And you also get to choose how you filter that. You get to choose what algorithm you use to get the information from the network and get the information from these apps. So we're at the very, very beginning of this. And again, like Bitcoin, it has a very interesting developer community because there's no one single lead and because there's no specific equity or a salary. People are working on what they're passionate about. So as a whole, it tends to look like it moves a lot slower, but it allows for a lot more creativity. And it's about just over 2 years old now. And it's moving a lot faster than I thought, a lot faster than Twitter did in its early days in terms of developer interest and application. And I think the interesting thing about the utility is, like, who knows? People get to make whatever they want. And if it resonates with other people, then it grows. And if it doesn't, they can take that as a lesson to build something that does resonate with more people. But again, at the end of the day, they're not asking permission from anyone but themselves. And that's really key and really important. And by seeing Bitcoin as a success, by seeing Nostr as something that will be successful, by seeing these open source paths for artificial intelligence as success, we get more and more confidence to focus the permission asking on ourselves rather than our governments or our corporations. Like, the corporations are taking the majority of the impact in the steering. I worry less about the governments, more about the companies.
Okay. When you look into your crystal ball, Jack, 2 years' time, what do you think will be the situation in the ecosystem of permissionless technologies?
I don't have a crystal ball, and I also would advise you not to listen to anyone who speaks about the future because nobody knows anything.
So has our whole panel been a lie, Jack?
No. These are all aspirations, right? And this is what we want to build, and this is what we want to see in the world. But it's a function of how well we do it.
Yeah.
And we get to choose what we build and what we make up, and if people enjoy it, then it's the future, and if people don't, then hopefully we take it as a lesson and we use that to build something else that people do value. I really like the Bitcoin mantra of don't trust, verify. I think it speaks to the permissionless nature of the culture and the technology. It speaks to skepticism. It speaks to self-reliance and self-regulation. It speaks to doing the work. And again, like, I feel great about being at conferences like this because I get to see people and I get to feel the energy around something that can be very abstract and in our heads and on our fingertips. But when you feel this energy, it feels amazing. But we can get easily trapped in talking about the things instead of doing the things. And it's related to another mantra of show, don't tell. And the best way to spread an idea is to actually build it, to show it off in such a way that people can feel it and they can experience it. And they feel it so much, it feels electric that they just can't, they can't stop shaking. They want to like spread it or they want to contribute to it. And while this is time to like build those connections, the real work is that building of these networks. It's, you know, being in the quiet spaces on your keyboard. It's being in a small team and writing the ideas down and critiquing them and throwing them away and starting over and being more and more creative. I think we have a lot of conferences where there's way too much talk on the stage, not in the audience, but on the stage, and there's very, very little doing. And we tend to get back into these, like, as Femi said this morning, like, Bitcoin fixes everything. It's not going to fix it by itself. It's not going to fix it by itself. We fix everything with Bitcoin. We fix everything with open protocols. We fix everything with these permissionless technologies. But it's a decision and it's work. And it is not convenient and it's not always fun and it's a burden. But it's a choice. What future do you want to live in? What future do you want your kids to live in? And do they own it? Do you not own it? Or are they locked up in these corporations and as proxies for the government that, you know, can pretty much do anything with your life at this point?
Thank you for that, Jack. We have run out of time. Thank you very much for agreeing to come back to ABC. I'm leaving with the thought that if the future of Bitcoin will be bright, then we must be more than thinkers and talkers. We must also be doers. So thank you very much, Jack, and back over to you.
Thank you all.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Please don't leave. Please don't leave yet. I just have a couple of announcements that are very, very important. Another round of applause for them, please. So, first of all, guys, Paul doesn't want to pay me my money. On your way out, help me lock his shirt. Make sure that he pays me. The restrooms are back here for those that have been wondering where the restrooms are. Please know that lunch is not until 12:45. So lunch is from 12:45 to 1:45. And so in the meantime, we would love if you attend one of the interactive sessions. The paradigm shift for seamless Bitcoin payments will be downstairs, TBD room. And then securing Bitcoin with hardware wallets would be at a brush room, which is across from the registration desk. Also, unlocking fundings, Bitcoin project grants, from Human Rights Foundation. If you're interested in how you can get grants and so on, please make sure that you attend that interactive session. Is right next to the registration desk. And then lunch is at 12:45. You can also attend the open source hardware solo mining. That one is also downstairs. The BTC data that our Kenyan woman talked about earlier this morning, it will also be at the Human Rights Foundation room, which is next to the registration room, and the privacy Jenga also at BTrust room. Now, while all this is happening, make sure that you visit the Fedi Play Store so that you can have fun, interact, play games, win some sats. We will reconvene here at 3 o'clock. And before I let you go, please stand up and let's give another round of applause to all the speakers that have spoken this morning. If you enjoyed any of the speakers, give them a round of applause, please. I'll see you guys at 3 o'clock. Thank you so much.